What is up, you guys? Welcome to another day with Spencer here on my personal channel, and I have just completed my first day of lifeguard training. So I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly with today, and yeah, fill you in on what happened. If you don't know what's going on, last video I talked about how I'm going to be a lifeguard for a camp this summer called Camp Aeronautic. So I had to get certified because I am only advanced EMT and CPR and AED certified, and that's like a completely different certification. So this is why I'm getting lifeguard trained, and this is my experience being a trans individual trying to maneuver the system. As I mentioned in the last video, my concerns were basically about attire and skill level. I have not been in the pool swimming since about November, and the prerequisite test involved a 300-yard swim, a 2 minutes of treading water without using your hands, as well as diving down and picking up a 10-pound block and not backstroking, but swimming on your back to the starting point. Alright, so let's talk about the good. So the good is the test, the prerequisite test. I was very nervous about it, but it turns out it was fairly easy. We had to do the 300-yard swim first. One of the things that I wish they told us, which they didn't, was that you have to do 4 laps breaststroke, 4 laps freestyle or front stroke, and then the other 4 laps you can do whatever you want. I did not know that. Freestyle or front stroke is my best stroke. It's what I'm most comfortable in, so I was planning on doing all 12 freestyle, and breaststroke isn't very strong for me, so I was a little nervous about that, but I found out quickly enough that breaststroke is actually much more relaxing, and when I was tired, breaststroke really came in handy. But I started off swimming front stroke or freestyle the first 4 laps, and then I switched to breaststroke. Then I did 2 laps front freestyle and then 2 laps breaststroke. So I finished with breaststroke and it was fine. I was pretty proud of myself. I actually finished 3rd in pool of 14. So I was happy that I still had the endurance and stamina and power that I had back then. But it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Definitely got tiring, but again, the breaststroke really came in handy because it made you relax, at least for me. So I was able to use it to my advantage. The next thing we had to do was retrieve a 10-pound block from the bottom of the pool and swim it on our backs back to the front with holding the block like this, so both hands on the block. That I thought was going to be the easiest for me, and it actually was the hardest for me. I guess, for one, I underestimated how deep the pool was. I was swimming at a facility where the deep end was 12 feet, so when I dove down to retrieve the rock, I didn't take as much air as I wanted to in, so I felt a little bit rushed when I came back up. But once I got up, I put the block on my abdomen just to stay afloat, but they said I had to keep it out of water, so then I put it more right up here, which pushed my head down, which made me almost drown. So then I had to basically hold it out in front of me. That requires a lot more strength, just holding it up in the air like I did, but I couldn't figure out a position to put it where I wasn't going to either go under or the rock was going to be under. What I found out is like this area is the best, and I had it like close here or in my abdomen. So I just held it straight up in the air and backpedaled back. It wasn't that difficult. I just couldn't figure out what the best thing was, and it made me panic a little bit, but once I figured it out, it was good. Lastly, we had to tread water without using our hands for 2 minutes. Now, I thought this was going to be the most difficult part of the entire test, but it turns out for me it was the easiest. When you relax in the pool and you do either like the egg beater kick or the breaststroke kick, it's much easier. I advise anyone who's doing this type of testing to not do flutter kicks. It'll tire you out much quicker. But yeah, around 1 minute and 30 seconds, I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel this a little bit. Good thing I only have 30 seconds left, and that was it. I think really physically the hardest part of the day wasn't the test itself. It was the fact that everything was back to back to back. The minute that we finished the test, we immediately went into learning lifeguard skills and stuff. So I was pretty exhausted by the time lunch came around, just because I've been swimming and treading water. I've never tread water as long as I have in my life. Like today, I tread water for like 25 minutes and I wanted to die. It was insane. But I think like the most athletic part wasn't the actual prerequisite test, it was the class itself. Another good was that I bought Speedos for my packer. I used my sailor, bought Speedos for my packer, and it worked well. It didn't move at all, and I was really happy about that. So that was the good with the attire part and the tests. So the bad, I guess. So basically, I swam with a tape chest. I used KT tape as well as a rash guard, and my rash guard is pretty tight, and it made my chest look flat. Everything was good until tape started coming off. Now, I usually don't tape my chest in the pool, but I was very concerned with being stealth, and on top of that, I was a very active thing, so I couldn't wear a binder, so I decided to tape my chest for this. The tape was coming off, and by the second half of class, I wasn't as flat as I wanted to be. So I was very concerned and very worried, especially since one of the parts of classes you have to be the victim. So if I'm like being the victim and I'm pretending to drown, they have to like come up behind me and hook me to like rescue me or whatever, and it just made me very uncomfortable and very conscious of the fact that my tape was coming off. So I was very worried about that. I think next class, since we're doing a lot of escapes and a lot of grabs, I'm going to just wear a binder. I don't recommend this. Don't wear a binder to the pool, but I'm just going to wear a binder just to make myself more comfortable, because the second part of class I was just dying from dysphoria. I was just so worried that people were going to know, and no one did. No one found out, but it was too nerve-wracking for me. And then we're going to like talk about the ugly, and this isn't really about what I guess happened, or I guess my fears. So the ugly was I went to a private school. The facility was a private school, and they were having their camp there, and a lot of the kids that were doing the lifeguard camp, because you can start at 15, so a lot of them were high schoolers. A lot of them went to the school, and it was just, I was the only black person there, and it was, for whatever reason, that situation made me very like self-conscious. I don't really know why. I'm used to being the only black person, but for whatever reason, I was more conscious of that fact today than I was any other day. As we started and we did the 300-yard swim, like I said, I was the third person out of the pool. One of the people that were ahead of me was like, "I'm so glad I met you. I didn't know black people could swim." Or, "I was so glad I met you. I didn't know black people swam." And that just kind of put me in a sour mood the rest of the day. The problem with this racism is that I can't get mad at the kid. He said it. He wasn't a kid. He was he's about to be a senior in high school. But this teenager said it like so sincerely, just like, I didn't know that was a fact. Like no, not to be mean or rude or racist, but just, in my world, I've never experienced such a thing happening, and I'm glad that you showed me that this thing happens. And when I say it like that, yeah, it sounds like better, but it's like, really, man, that's what you had to say to me. Like, oh my, it just threw me off. And then later in the class, when we were in the classroom part of it, because there's a water part and a classroom part, we were telling everybody like what we do, where we go to school, and if we have a job as a lifeguard. So I said, what I do, I'm an EMT. Where I go to school, I said I graduated college, and they asked, did I go to high school here? And I said I did. And they asked what high school, and I said my high school, which was a private school that is well known within the circuit of this private school. We were actually rivals. So then a person said, "No way, you didn't go there." And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And I thought they meant it as like, you're a rival, like we're rivals, but they meant it as like, I didn't know black people went there. And like even the instructor was like, "Dude, you really just said that? Like, come on." And so I was just like, oh god, I'm gonna, like, I don't know. One of these days, I said on my Facebook, I was very upset about it. I was like, one of these days I'm gonna be sick and tired of being the bigger person and hurt some feelings, because it's just insane what people think they can say to me, or what they think they can say to black people or minority people, just because they don't experience it in their day-to-day life, and think that they can use something like, oh, this is not the norm for me in my day-to-day life, so excuse my ignorance as a valid excuse. And I'm like, no, this is not okay. So the ugly had nothing to do with being trans. It just had everything to do with being a black person in the South. So that was really my concerns. I guess the takeaway points from this is that if you're going to do a lifeguard class and you're a transgender person and you're pre-surgeries, my advice to you would be get a swim binder, because tape doesn't hold up, especially with all the grabs and stuff. Rash guards are completely acceptable. Somebody did ask why I was wearing a rash guard. I told them that my camp requires lifeguards to wear a rash guard, and I wanted to get used to swimming with it, and that was the end of the conversation. It was a lie, but that was the end of the conversation. So rash guards are acceptable. Don't psych out about the pre-test. Honestly, if you have, the will to push through, you will push through. And please God, just be a decent human being to everybody else in the class. So tomorrow I'll give you my update on how the final day of class is, and I guess I will give an overview of my experience as the lifeguard training as a trans person. If you have any questions, concerns, problems, issues, qualms, please feel free to hit me up down below or any other social media sites you can find me on. It is Monday. It is Spencer. Until next time.